Welcome to Alphabet City. This is the show that covers everything to do with Alphabet. Alphabet happens to own lots of companies like Verily, Chronicle, Waymo, and Google. I'm your guide, Ayaz Akhtar, and you are the grandest audience of them all. Today we're talking about some folding phones, the Pixel, your comments, and more. But first up, it's Samsung time. On to Galaxy Gateway. ET News says Samsung will go with a keyless design for the Galaxy Note 10. That would mean no buttons on the sides. If I'm reading the Google translated article correctly, it seems that buttons will also be dropped from low-end and mid-range phones. Now, how do you turn on a phone without a button? The translated report says Samsung has developed a technology that can turn on and off the power and increase or decrease the volume without touching the button. The HTC U12 Plus has tried something like this, by the way. There were areas that looked like buttons, but they don't press in. They buzz with haptics to tell you when they've been touched. In our initial test, the haptic feedback on the HTC U12 Plus was not ideal. In other Note 10 news, a report by The Bell says there will be two versions of the device. One would have a smaller screen and be sold only in Europe. Samsung has a new blog post talking about the Galaxy Fold. To give potential customers peace of mind, the company says it conducts a test where the Fold is folded and unfolded 200,000 times. Samsung says its test simulates around 5 years of use if you use the phone 100 times a day. Quick aside, the Huawei Mate X is rated for 100,000 folds. Samsung's entire testing process takes 7 days to complete. For whatever reason, Samsung did not upload a time-lapse of the whole test. We get just 34 edited seconds showing robot units opening and closing several folds. The folding isn't even in sync. For what it's worth, the folding and unfolding does not look particularly gentle. Perhaps Samsung is planning for an inevitable future where people angrily slam their phones shut. Of course, the video does not show any of the phones failing. Remember, folks, the Galaxy Fold arrives on April 26th, and it starts at, say it with me, just $1,980. On to Pixel Park. A new report by WinFuture says the Pixel 3a and Pixel 3a XL have a third color option. There's black, there's white, and the third, iris. WinFuture figures the name means a mix of blue and violet, like an iris. The same report also has some pricing info. The 3a could cost more than 450 euros or around $500 US. If you're out of the loop, Google is rumored to introduce a new budget version of the Pixel this year. It's been called a number of things online like the Pixel Lite. A more recent report from 9 to 5 Google says the name is actually Pixel 3a and 3a XL. Also, Google has stopped selling the Pixel 2 and 2 XL online, by the way. On to Uptown Updates. Google Plus and Inbox are finally dead. So long. Gmail just turned 15 years old. To celebrate, Smart Compose will include more languages. More importantly, you can finally schedule email. You'll also be able to respond to comment threads in Google Docs without having to leave Gmail. Google Photos posted a tweet showing an upcoming feature for the Google Photos Android app. If you're viewing a picture of a receipt or a document, clicking the crop function will automatically clean up the image. The background will get cropped out and the edges get neatened up. A lot of other apps can do this already, but it's nice that Google Photos can do it too. YouTube TV is now available in every US television market. It launched way back in the olden days of April 2017 in a handful of places. Around 2 years later, it's everywhere. $40 a month gets you a live TV and DVR service. The BBC has pulled its podcast from Google Podcasts and Assistant. In a blog post, the director of BBC Distribution and Business Development said, quote, Google has begun to direct people who search for a BBC podcast into its own podcast service rather than BBC Sounds or other third-party services, end quote. This reduces choice, and the BBC is not a fan of it. And finally, The Intercept says the censored search engine for China, Dragonfly, is still not dead at Google. Its report says that execs are conducting an internal assessment on it. The report says fewer than a dozen top managers at the company are looped in on the review. On to Comment Cove. This is the part of the show where we shine a spotlight at the most amazing audience in the world. You guys. M. Nunes asks, can I please be on Comment Cove? Yes. Mutter says, why don't you give us the info about Stadia that we really need and want? It doesn't matter that the games are at whatever K and whatever FPS. There is nothing new about Stadia. It's an old idea that hasn't worked, and it hasn't worked because of latency. You didn't even mention the word latency, not even once. What solution is Google offering to this problem? Is it just going to wait until the internet gets fast enough? If so, how is Stadia any different from all the others who have come before it and are still waiting? Now, Mutter, you bring up some great points. Now, I've mentioned 4K and 60 FPS, HDR, and all that stuff because it sounds impossible. Latency is a great question. I saw a report about latency after we shot the episode. Eurogamer had the Stadia lag at 166 milliseconds on a 200 megabit per second connection. At 15 megabits per second, the lag was 188 milliseconds. Eurogamer says that Stadia has less latency when compared to Google's own Project Stream. Stadia is definitely laggier than a PC. Now, in some cases, Stadia performed as well as an Xbox One X. Now, what solution is Google offering? During the presentation, the company claimed its infrastructure is so robust it can handle fast connections. Vague, I know. Now, how is Stadia different? I don't know, timing, a growing acceptance of streaming everything, and maybe tons of Google money. Thanks to everyone for writing in. If you've enjoyed your stay in Alphabet City, please like and subscribe. I'm Ayaz Akhtar, and I'll see you online. It's time to get super excited. Work yourself into a lather, pop the champagne. LG announces LG G8 ThinQ is coming to the US starting on April 11th. That's right, you can watch the newest episode of Game of Thrones while you clutch your 3-day-old G8 ThinQ, because you'll do that.